Before knowing all the different regulatory system, let us talk about how the respiration is generated. So what is the mechanism of generation of respiration? So for respiratory center, the pacemaker is pre-Bodenzinger complex. Now this pre-Bodenzinger complex is present inside the medulla in the ventral part. Okay, this is responsible for generation of ramp signals. Now these ramp signals are called as inspiratory ramp signals. So inspiratory ramp signals, they are generated by pre-Bodenzinger complex along with different neurons. It is also called as central process generator. It's also called as central process generator. Now how it is producing this ramp signal? So the inspiratory neurons, if we plot a graph against an action potential and duration, the inspiratory neurons, they will fire action potential slowly. This action potential is also called as weak and slow action potential, which will last for 2 seconds. Okay, so if this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, the duration of this inspiratory action potential is for 2 seconds, and it will stop at this point. This is called as switch off point. This is called as switch off point. So there is abrupt stoppage of action potential which will last for next 3 seconds. Okay, so this is the time when there is passive expiration. So there is an elastic recoil of chest wall and lung, which is responsible for expiration. Okay, so there will be weak and slow inspiration, weak and slow signals rising up to 2 seconds, which is followed by abrupt stoppage at a point. That point is called a switch off point, and this abrupt stoppage will be there for next 3 seconds when there is elastic recoil of chest wall and lung, and it will be followed by the next impulse which will last for next 2 seconds. It will stop abruptly, and again there will be stoppage of this signal for next 3 seconds. So this is how there is generation of inspiratory ramp signals. Now this ramp signal, the name ramp came from this slope. This slope is slow rising. Why this is important? Because it will allow slow lung filling. So slow lung filling is very important to prevent inspiratory gasps. Okay, so to prevent the inspiratory gasps, this slow lung filling is important, and this switch off point will regulate the respiratory rate. If it is coming early, then the respiratory rate will be higher. If it is coming late, means the inspiration is longer and the expiration is shorter. So this switch off point will define your ventilation, whether it is hypoventilated or hypoventilated. Now this ramp signals, they have two qualities. This ramp signal have two qualities, that is rate, and next is stoppage point or switch off point. Okay, so rate or the stoppage point, they are giving the quality of ramp signal. So switch off point will control the rate So if there is early stoppage, there will be rapid breathing. Okay, so if there is rapid breathing, means the respiratory rate is increased. Okay. So early stoppage will cause increased respiratory rate. Okay, so there is decrease in duration of inspiration as well as expiration. Okay, so switch off point is controlling the rate of respiration, which is controlling the duration of inspiration and duration of expiration. So this is how there is formation of or the generation of generation of respiration. So ramp signal is very important, the inspiratory ramp signals. So inspiratory ramp signals, they are slow, weak, which is very important for the slow lung filling, and it will prevent the inspiratory gasp. So this switch off point, just keep this in mind because it is important for the next regulation system. So there is slow rising of respiration or the ramp signal for 2 seconds, abrupt stoppage which will last for 3 seconds. During this abrupt stoppage, there will be passive expiration because of elastic recoil of chest wall and lung. Now let us see what are the different respiratory centers. Okay, so if this is upper pons, this is lower pons. So in upper pons we have pneumotaxic center, lower pons apneustic center. Then in medulla, dorsally there is DRG and ventrally there is VRG. VRG is having 3 parts. So this is rostral part, intermediate part and caudal part. Okay, so this is pneumotaxic center, this is apneustic center, this is DRG, that is dorsal respiratory group of neurons, and this is VRG. DRG consists of only inspiratory neurons, VRG consists of inspiratory as well as expiratory neurons. Okay, DRG and VRG, they are connected by interneurons. So the most important respiratory center is DRG. Now how is this mechanism, how everything is related to each other? Let us see. This DRG is getting many afferents to regulate the respiration. Okay, so inspiratory neurons and expiratory neurons, they will act on lungs and chest wall. The inspiratory neurons, they will act on the muscles of inspiration, and expiratory neurons will act on muscles of expiration. Normally the inspiratory neurons and expiratory neurons, they are working in an reciprocal inhibition pattern. Now what is reciprocal inhibition? Means if one neuron is stimulated, the other neuron will be inhibited. So if there is stimulation of inspiratory neurons, there will be inspiration. At the same time, there will be inhibition of expiratory neurons and there will be inhibition of expiration. Okay, this is called as reciprocal inhibition. Now what are the different afferents which are going to the DRG? So these are like from stretch receptors. The stretch receptors are present in the bronchi and bronchioles. Now these stretch receptors, they are responsible for a reflex that is called as Herring-Muir inflation reflex and Herring-Muir deflation reflex. Okay, how they are regulating, we will see that. So first is by a stretch receptor. So they are getting afferents from stretch receptor. B, they are getting afferents from irritant receptors. Irritant receptors means from bronchi and bronchioles, from the secretions, like because of any chemical or foreign body entering into the lungs, they will give afferent to the DRG, and the respiration is regulated or inhibited depending upon the need. The next is via J receptors. Now these J receptors, they are present near to the capillary, that is why they are called as J receptor, juxtacapillary receptors. They will sense the change in the pulmonary interstitial fluid. So if there is any kind of edema, pulmonary edema, these J receptors are activated and they will give afferent to DRG. So C is by J receptors. Then one more afferent goes to DRG, that is from joints. So muscles, the proprioceptors which are present in the tendons, muscles and the joints, they will give afferent to DRG, that is dorsal respiratory group of neurons, and according to the need they will increase or decrease the respiration. As we know, during exercise they will send the impulses to the DRG and there will be increased respiratory rate depending upon the need of oxygen. So this is a neural regulation via reflexes. Okay, so what are the role of pneumotaxic center and apneustic center? We will see this in details. So pneumotaxic center is responsible for control of switch off point. So it controls the switch off point, which I have already talked about. So what does this pneumotaxic center do? So as I told you, it is a slow rise of inspiration and abrupt stoppage of impulse, which is there for 3 seconds, and this is an ramp signal. If you collaborate it with the tidal volume, it will be like this. So this is an air entry and air exit. Okay, so this is inspiration and this is expiration. Again inspiration followed by expiration. Now this point is controlled by pneumotaxic center. So if pneumotaxic center is strong, if it is strong, it can reduce this duration of inspiratory ramp signal from 2 seconds to 0.5 seconds. So up to 0.5 seconds it can reduce the inspiratory signals. So if this duration is reduced, this duration will be reduced, so the respiratory rate will increase. So this pneumotaxic center, if it is strong, it will increase the respiratory rate, which can be up to 30 to 40 breaths per minute if it is strong. If this pneumotaxic center is weak, if it is getting weak, it can extend this ramp signal up to 5 seconds. Up to 5 seconds. So it can reduce the respiratory rate up to 3 to 4 breaths per minute. Okay. So what is the importance of pneumotaxic center is to control the switch off point, to bring it closer or to bring it a little bit farther. So depending upon this position of switch off point, the respiratory rate is defined. Depending upon the respiratory rate, the ventilation will be defined. So if this pneumotaxic center is strong, the ventilation is high. If the pneumotaxic center is weak, the ventilation is low. So it can go up to 3 to 4 breaths per minute in weaker system, and it can go up to 30 to 40 breaths per minute in a stronger pneumotaxic center. Okay. Now what is the role of apneustic center? So pneumotaxic center, it will not directly act on the inspiratory neurons of DRG. Okay, everything is done by inspiratory neurons. Inspiratory neurons, they will fire action potential to the muscles of inspiration, and then there will be increase or decrease in the respiration depending upon the need. Okay, so now this pneumotaxic center do not have direct action on DRG, it will act via apneustic center. Now how does it act via apneustic center? So as the name itself suggests, apneustic means if there is apneurosis, breathing. Apneusis means inspiration. So there will be long inspiration. So apneustic center controls the DRG. So if the apneustic center is stimulated, the inspiration is prolonged. So that is called as apneusis. So long inspiration. So what does this pneumotaxic center do? It will inhibit the apneustic center, which in turn will inhibit the DRG. Okay. So the inspiration will be taken place for a required duration. Okay. So if this pneumotaxic center is destroyed, this apneustic center will take over, and there will be apneustic breathing. This apneustic breathing means long inspiration with a small gasp of expiration. That is called as apneustic breathing. So pneumotaxic center will inhibit the apneustic center. Normally the apneustic center will inhibit the DRG. So inspiratory ramp signals, it will be taken check or controlled. So it will remain only for 2 seconds, and then it will abruptly close for 3 seconds. So there will be an smooth transition from inspiration to expiration. So this transition from inspiration to expiration is basically controlled by pneumotaxic center. Okay, so there is smoothing of this phases from inspiration to expiration, which is done by pneumotaxic center. So this is how the respiration is controlled. Okay, now what is the role of VRG? So VRG is important, means when there is need of increased ventilation, at that time the inspiratory neurons from VRG are also stimulated, and when there is forceful expiration, the expiratory neurons of VRG, they are also stimulated. So the VRG comes in role during exercise, during forceful breathing, and during increased or decreased ventilation. Okay, so normally in quiet breathing, DRG is active, and by reciprocal inhibition, the VRG is cooperating with DRG along with the interneurons. Okay, so this is how there is a neural regulation of respiration. Okay, so the pneumotaxic central, it is the control of switch off point. The exact mechanism is not known, but this is how it is controlling the inspiration and expiration. It is smoothing, it is causing smoothing of transition of inspiration from expiration. Okay, now we'll see about